What a busy afternoon we have ahead. We will discuss Tennessee's weekend in basketball. We will talk Tennessee football and the additions to the 2024 roster. In just a moment, we'll get to a 2025 commitment that is big news. It was expected. I think just about everybody knew that it was coming, but when it actually comes, it's a big deal for Tennessee. We'll get to that coming up in a moment. We have Charles Power of On3, who handles scouting of On3's recruiting. He'll join us at 12:30 to talk about George McIntyre. He's the 2025 quarterback who committed to Tennessee this morning. We will invite you to join us. The text box will be open all 3 hours. Same number to call in, 865-656-9900 to be a part of Josh and Swain today, alongside VFL and former Tennessee wide receiver Jason Swain. Swain, good afternoon. How are you?
Decade of the Vols, Josh Ward. Decade of the Vols. I'm great, man. Tennessee, 20-point blowout win versus Alabama, a team that came into the game as one of the best offensive teams in college basketball. And Tennessee said, not so fast, my friend. Feeling good there. Tennessee got a couple commitments for the 2024 season. And, hey, man, you got your future secured with a 2025 commitment. Only one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Only one of the best quarterbacks in Tennessee, best players in Tennessee, and you get it done early so that way George McIntyre can help build the class and bring on other top talents from the state of Tennessee with him. So, hey, man, it's the year of the Vols, but Pruitt said it, man. Decade of the Vols is coming true. Might not have been a good head football coach, pretty good fortune teller.
Yeah, so far, so good since that happened with a little bit of a speed bump along the way, but all roads have them. All roads have them. So George McIntyre committing to Tennessee earlier today, that's big news in getting him. He's a very highly touted player, one of the best players at his position, quarterback matters, all of that. Tennessee will also hope that helps attract more talent around him, that he can be influential. My guess is that he's already started the process in trying to help recruit other players to Tennessee. He was sitting next to Josh Heupel at the Alabama basketball game. What a win for Tennessee. Again, we'll get to that. But landing George McIntyre is good for getting him, a very talented quarterback, and then in the hopes of landing players around him now that he's on board.
That's what it's about, man. Your quarterback should be your best recruiter in a class. And I'm pretty sure George McIntyre has built some really good relationships inside of the state on different recruiting trips, visits. So this bodes well for Tennessee that we understand needs to recruit at a higher level. Not saying that Tennessee hasn't had a good year recruiting this past year, but you got to take it up another level, another notch if you want to get over that hump. And so this is a great step in doing that. You have brought in multiple guys that even if Nico leaves early, may have another year, maybe upperclassmen, seniors, when either Jake Merklinger or George McIntyre takes over. So you have addressed the future. You've also addressed the present. So a lot of really good things going on right now with Tennessee football.
Yeah, the present would include Lance Hurd making his announcement over the weekend. It was much anticipated. We were providing not only daily, I felt like segment by segment updates of.
Yeah, you were. Lance Hurd watch. I was like, "Are you watching? Who's watching?"
Yeah, I don't know what I was watching, but I was watching the internet and I saw the text box in our YouTube chat continue to have the same questions. What's going on here, and why haven't we heard anything? And I still think the irony is that the drama came out of the silence when typically it's social media posts and players taking visits. And man, why is this? What's going on here? It was actually him not doing anything that created the quote drama, but it was a matter of everything being taken care of behind the scenes. He announced that he'll head to Tennessee. And then not long after that, Jackson Moy, the defensive line transfer from Stanford, who had just wrapped up his visit to Tennessee, announced the same, that he will transfer. So Tennessee lands a starting offensive tackle in Lance Hurd, and then defensive line depth in Jackson Moy.
Oh, yeah, exactly what you needed. You have to address the line of scrimmage. It's the line of scrimmage league. We know that. And Tennessee has had some success with the current roster with the way you have been doing things, but where Tennessee has kind of stubbed its toe, when you look at the losses last year, you can look at the trenches and how the opposing team won that battle. So if you're Tennessee, you have to address that. And I think Tennessee did a really good job of doing that with two guys that won't just be 1 year rentals. They're going to be guys that's going to be here 2 or 3 years.
Kwame asked in the text box, barring injury with the addition of Hurd, does this Tennessee offensive line now have the opportunity to be top 5 in the league in 2024?
In 24, yeah, absolutely. I think you still need to add one more minimum. But for 2024, you have experience, you have talent, you have NFL talent. There's no doubt that this offensive line has the chance to be one of the top 5 in the league. I mean, that should be realized without saying. I mean, you got a lot of guys coming back that's play a lot of football. So even without addressing guard, you still should be one of the best 5 offensive line units in the SEC.
Yeah, I would think a good chance knowing the potential of Hurd. He still has to prove it. He hasn't started yet in the SEC, but he's very talented. Last week, Matt Moscona said he would be a starter at LSU if not for the guys they have at that position, and they're very well thought of at tackle. He still has to prove it. Can he be a reliable starting left tackle for Tennessee if that's where we think he'll play? Either way, left or right, he has to prove it. But nobody's doubting the potential. The highest potential player on that line would be Hurd, based on how he's been scouted and regarded arriving at LSU.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, he's a 5-star coming out of high school. You look at his frame. He's already winning right there. Just genetic.
The photo of Lance Hurd in the commitment post that he made, he looks like a mountain.
He looks like a mountain, and he has 3 more years. So there's still room for him to develop. That's why his ceiling is the highest than anybody else on the offensive line.
So Tennessee's offensive line ceiling is the roof. We think that's true going into this year?
Michael Jordan said it is. Has Michael Jordan ever said anything wrong? No. So
that I can think
offensive line ceiling is the roof.
I watched the movie Air, not to get us too far off topic, but I finally watched it Friday night.
Is that the one with the dog?
Are you talking about Air Bud, or we?
Oh yeah, that's Air Bud. My bad.
Yeah, that's a different one. Air with Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, the courting of Michael Jordan, and really Michael Jordan's family to Nike.
Yeah, I don't be ashamed of myself. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, it's really good.
I'm embarrassed.
It's good. Jordan is the central figure in the courtship, but the movie is everything around Jordan. He doesn't speak in the movie, so it's really well done. I enjoyed it.
I have to check it out. Thank you.
So George McIntyre is committed to Tennessee. The Vols will use that on the recruiting trail. Lance Hurd is officially coming to Tennessee. Classes start tomorrow over on campus. Jackson Moy is transferring from Stanford to play on the defensive line. And Tennessee basketball is celebrating a big win. They've already moved on. They have all week, though, to get ready for Vanderbilt on Saturday. We'll discuss what Tennessee did on Saturday at the Food City Center. We'll get back to George McIntyre and Lance Hurd. Charles Power of On3 will join us at 12:30. We'll see what he likes about Tennessee's new quarterback commitment and what On3 saw in Lance Hurd when he was so highly regarded a year ago, arriving at LSU, now transferring to Tennessee. We're going to be busy this afternoon. We invite you to join us at 865-656-9900 today on 99.1 The Sports Animal, as well as up in the Tri-Cities. Hello to everybody listening on AM 640, The Sports Monster, or wherever you might be streaming the show. You can find us on the Sports Animal YouTube page today as well. Alongside Jason Swain, I'm Josh Ward. We continue on Josh and Swain. afternoon. We're on the Sports Animal. We're on the Sports Monster. We're talking a good weekend for Tennessee that extended into this Monday with George McIntyre's commitment, the 2025 quarterback who projects to be a five-star in next year's class, one of the top-rated players at his position, at any position really, for 2025, goes to Brentwood Academy, and he announced his commitment to Tennessee today. He chose Tennessee over Alabama, had several suitors really could go where he wanted to. LSU, Michigan, Clemson, other schools that had been in the mix. But it looked like a Tennessee-Alabama battle for a while, and it looked like Tennessee was well out in front for a while. He made that sure today, announcing his commitment to Tennessee. There was no question on the court for 40 minutes, Swain, who was the better basketball team 2 days ago. Tennessee with a 91-71 win against Alabama. And the Vols did what they wanted to on both ends of the floor, which kept Alabama from being able to do anything to try to make it competitive as the game went along.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that really stands out in this basketball game was the suffocating defense for Tennessee. I mean, we knew Tennessee's defense was really, really good, but, you know, we did see this defense against Georgia on the road getting caught in rotations. Georgia have an opportunity to pour in 14 threes, and Georgia had some success offensively. We knew Tennessee would make adjustments, but we didn't know that Tennessee would make that well of an adjustment to be able to essentially shut down completely one of the best offensive teams in the country, forcing 22 turnovers. That's insane when you think about it. Tennessee only committing 7 turnovers, which gives you 15 plus in the turnover margin. That's 15 extra possessions. I mean, if you can't beat a team with 15 extra possessions, you don't deserve to win. And then you look at the physicality of the game, Tennessee owning the paint, Jonas Adu continuing to show why he's one of the best big men in the country, Zakai Ziegler doing what he does best. And then, I mean, I don't know what Dalton Connect was doing. I mean, what happened, dog? I mean, just an off night. Off day, only 25 points. I mean, I didn't tune in to see Dalton Connect only score 25 points. I mean, that's a letdown, Josh. Just a complete letdown from Dalton Connect.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what's wrong with him as you're going through something, only putting up 25. That really does, though, say something about his game. He struggled shooting from the outside. He's 1 of 6 from behind the three-point line, but still got to 25 points because he got 8 free throws, hit them all, and he continues to show his ability to score in different ways. He's able to play above the rim and provide exciting plays. DeLeon's play, by the way, defensively, where he made up for a mistake on the offensive end, gets the ball back, has the heads-up play to look down the court, see Dalton get him the ball, and then he makes a big play with the dunk in transition, fires up the crowd, of course. But Connect, he can shoot poorly and still have a big game offensively, putting up 25. So a drop-off from what he had done recently with 28, 36, 39, back to 25, back to reality for him. But it's everybody again, and Jemai Mashak's impact continues to be felt. The box score is not always going to show it, although a plus-minus can. But he played 28 minutes. It's really like they play 6 starters, and the minutes are more evenly distributed. But Mashak is so important for what Tennessee is able to do off the bench. He can provide an offensive punch, but what he's able to do defensively matters so much for Tennessee. And if Jordan Gainey hits shots off the bench as well, then good luck against Tennessee. But a huge win for what it means in conference play. Tennessee, Auburn, Kentucky, and still Alabama are going to lead this race probably. The Vols getting that win against Alabama is one you kind of have early on to get that position. But to win 91-71 and all these guys to do what they were able to on Saturday, they're locked in on both sides, and it was a challenge. Alabama's going to be a good team this year, but Tennessee showed, I think, that when it's at its best, it can cause problems for a team like Alabama to keep it from being able to keep up.
Yeah, last night on the locker room, we had Jonas Adu and Freddie DeLeon. And one of my questions to both of those guys was, who's the better defender? Is it Jemai Mashak or is it Zakai Ziegler? And they struggled, man. They really struggled. They didn't want to answer it, but I pulled it out of them. And they were like, Mashak just so good, man. Like he is so good. And you look at Dalton Connect, remember a couple of games earlier in the season where Dalton Connect showed like that he was going to average 30 points per game. And then he had a little bit of a rut. Well, now he's obviously bounced out of that rut and is playing some high-level basketball. But why do you think Dalton Connect is doing that? Because every day he has to go up against Jamal Meshack. And Meshack gets Dalton ready for physical play that right now he's not having a big problem with at all. So you have that going for you. Think about this team last year, and defensively they were stout as any team in the country. At one point, they were the best defensive team, in the country. And don't connect that missing piece because you can be stout. Don't connect can appear like he's having an off game, but his 25 points is what you need. You don't need him to go for 30-something points. We know he can, but he doesn't have to go for 30 points. He can go for 20, and because you still have that defensive efficiency from last year and you have the improved ball movement offensively, that ball was buzzing around. The ball movement was beautiful over the weekend. Now it puts a lot of pressure on defenses, and then you have a dude who will shoot the jump shot outside of the paint and can shoot it and make it on a consistent basis. And then you add Gainey getting out of his slump. Good luck. And Santi, he's made some outside shots. He's not even cooking yet. So just imagine when he gets going. That's why this team is so tough to beat and will be tough to beat, because there's depth and there's guys that are capable of making shots when their number's called.
21 assists for Tennessee, 22 turnovers for Alabama. That's a good ratio.
Oh, yeah.
What you're able to do, taking care of the basketball, moving the basketball, and taking it away from the opponent. We talked to CJ Moore of The Athletic on Friday, and he said Tennessee's one of the top 5 or 6 teams and has to be taken serious as a national title contender. Jimmy Dykes, who was a part of both ESPN broadcasts last week, said Jonas Aidoo is becoming one of the best big men in all of college basketball. Tennessee has everything you need to win a national title. Dalton Connect continues to get more national attention. So Vols are in a really good position. Obviously, getting to the Final Four or competing for a national title is tough. But Tennessee has the pieces and is getting a lot of the attention because what they had last year was really good. What Dalton Connect adds, the development of Jonas Aidoo and the continued buy-in from everybody else, that has maybe taken Tennessee to an even higher level. So we'll talk more about Tennessee's win against Alabama. They have the whole week to get ready for a trip to Nashville. The next game is Saturday at Vanderbilt. We'll talk more hoops as the afternoon goes along. We'll talk more Tennessee football as well. Tennessee received a commitment from 2025 quarterback George McIntyre from Brentwood Academy earlier today. Charles Power of On3, who manages the scouting for On3, will tell us what Tennessee is getting in McIntyre, what Tennessee is getting in Lance Hurt, who's transferring from LSU, plus his thoughts on some potential impact players in the 24 class for the Vols. That when we come back as we continue on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us as we continue on this Monday afternoon. We're with you until 3 o'clock. Tyler and Will take over at 3 on the Sports Animal. We're live in the Tri-Cities as well. AM 640, the Sports Monster, and wherever you might be streaming the show today, we appreciate you. And we say hello right now to Charles Power, who's running the scouting for On3, which is busier than ever right now with everything that's happening in the world of college football. Charles, we appreciate you taking time to join us again on 3.com to see the work from him and his team. And Tennessee picked up a commitment earlier today from a guy who's highly ranked by On3 heading into 2025, George McIntyre from Brentwood Academy. What can you tell us about what you've seen, what you think of McIntyre as a prospect looking ahead to next year's class?
Yeah, I think George McIntyre has a lot of just translatable skills at quarterback. I think this is a guy who, when you look at his athleticism, his ability to win from the pocket outside of structure, his natural mechanics, just overall coordination, it just bodes really well when you're projecting for the position. He's a guy who I've seen in person twice. I've been to 2 of his games the last 2 years. I think he just has a lot of just playmaking ability and natural skills that we tend to like. You know, he's over 6'5". I think for a taller quarterback, has a really tight release, accurate, can throw to all levels of the field. You know, we all know his background as a basketball player, and I think that athleticism and just spatial awareness transfers really well to playing quarterback. And you know, I think George had a good junior year. A lot was made about Brentwood Academy's season. They played a tough schedule. They had trouble blocking up front, but he really carried his team, and they were in tight games because of him. I think he put up pretty good raw stats, and kind of he was just dragging the team essentially. So, you know, I think that experience will help him long term. Like, he had to make a lot of plays under duress, played against pressure. That's something we see from a lot of top quarterbacks, that they really are, if they're at a powerhouse program, don't see a lot of pressure. And I think he experienced that, and I think it's going to be beneficial for his development. You know, like a lot, like what he brings to the table. And I personally love the basketball background. That's something that we've seen kind of transfer over with these top quarterbacks. Especially you look at like a lot of these NFL quarterbacks. These are guys who were high level basketball players. You think of like a CJ Stroud, was a spot up shooter in basketball. Like in this upcoming draft, Drake May was like that. And I think George actually bears a little bit of resemblance to Drake May, a little bit kind of from scouting both of those guys. You know, at the high school level, there's some similarities there. Now, George is going to have to continue filling out, getting stronger. But man, I think when you look at what Tennessee's doing at quarterback, you know, with Nico, Jake Merklinger, and now George McIntyre in that class, like that's a really strong, you know, kind of triumvirate of quarterbacks to bring into your room. And you know, I think he's a good fit for the offense as well. So, you know, I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you need to be ecstatic today. And this was a high profile recruiting battle. I think he was one of, if not the most hotly, you know, sought after quarterbacks in the 25 cycle. It looks like a really good year at quarterback in 2025. I think it was at this point much stronger than the 2024 cycle nationally. So to go in and get, you know, the top quarterback in the state, one of the top quarterbacks in the country is a huge get for Josh Heupel.
Charles, when you look at the recruiting rankings and the team rankings, everyone's excited about being in the top 5, and but in the SEC, it's about being, you know, one of the top 3 or 4 teams, because you can be 7th in the country and be 7th in the SEC. Where do you think Tennessee needs to be in terms of in the pecking order in the SEC to really be able to compete and find themselves in a position to be one of the teams in 12-team playoff in the coming years?
Yeah, I think with Tennessee, I think as long as you're in the top 10, you would probably feel good. I think to feel great, you would probably want to be a consistent top 5 type recruiting team. And I think once you're in that top 5 range, it can kind of hinge on like your quarterbacks, like guys like that. But I think when you look at the teams that are consistently kind of in the playoff picture, you look at Georgia, Alabama, historically, they're recruiting really top 3 probably every year and just stacking talent on the lines of scrimmage. Now, I think that's going to be tougher to do that in the portal era, especially with just like the transfer rules. I guess you don't even have to sit out. You can transfer as many times as possible. So I think that's going to lead to a little more even dispersion of talent. So I don't know if we're going to see mega classes like we have seen the last 5 to 7 years. Like I think back, doing this like in 2019, 2020, there was 4 programs that were recruiting at a level a good tier higher than anyone else. Whereas now there's just not quite that separation. So I think as long as you're kind of in that top group, top 5 to 7, I think you're going to have a shot. And I think a lot of it would depend on just kind of where you stack up with, your quarterback room, and then not having a ton of holes on your roster and filling those with impact transfers.
We're talking to Charles Power. He is the director of scouting and recruiting for On3.com. And you mentioned that quarterback position in the room for Tennessee. Nico made his starting debut for the Vols in the bowl game, the win against Iowa in the Citrus Bowl. With where you guys had Nico in the 23 class and what you thought he could become in college, what did that first start show you in terms of the comparison of what you projected with him coming in as a prospect?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to be really pleased with how he looked. I think what was exciting to me was to see how they used him in the run game. I think that was an area where it was a little bit of a projection for Nico. We knew he was athletic. He didn't run quite as much in high school, but I was just excited to see how they used him on design runs, kind of in the red zone, what he could do with his legs, and then of course, like we all know his arm, like he's a mega arm talent. So I think just working him in, getting him comfortable, building confidence. I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you need to be ecstatic with how he looked, and for our purposes, I came away from that thinking, like I feel good about our ranking right now. Obviously, there's a lot of football left to be played with those guys. I mean, some of them haven't even seen significant time yet, but he looked like you would expect a number 1 overall talent to look like in that game against a really tough defense. I mean, they were like a top maybe 3 defense in the country this year. So, I think if you're a Tennessee fan, you need to be super jacked up about how Nico looked, and that was one where it was funny. Like I was at these national all-star games, I was flying, trying to make flights, and I was definitely locked into that because, for our purposes, like we definitely want to see how these guys look early on, especially one like Nico, who we had number 1 overall.
Charles, every quarterback that's rated in high school, I mean, they're going to throw the ball well. They're going to be able to make all the throws in high school for the most part. But it seems like what separates the good quarterbacks from the 5 stars are the guys who are mobile, the guys that have the ability to make all the throws without a ton of effort. But the ones who are successful in college are the ones that display the leadership, being able to lead a group of young men, sometimes older than them. How do you guys find out whether a quarterback possesses that type of leadership quality during your evaluations?
Yeah, that's tough because a lot of it really kind of hinges on our exposure to those guys. I definitely think that is a factor, and you try to do we'll do work on that and kind of go through our due diligence and just kind of seeing just what college coaches say about these guys, and that does factor in. But I think too, I think it shows up. It shows up on Friday nights. It shows up when we see these guys in person. To me, it's really more so about just how do we see that transfer over to the field? I mean, I went to one of Nico's games as a senior, saw him on the 7-on-7 circuit. And, I think obviously he's a guy with a lot of charisma. So that certainly did not hurt him at all, kind of in our evaluation process. So when you have a guy like that and it's readily apparent and it's a genuine thing, it doesn't hurt. But that's a really interesting question. That's something that just when you're evaluating high school prospects, it's difficult. But it does matter at quarterback, and that's something I think when you look at college teams, NFL teams, they're all trying to kind of figure out how to do that. And there's so much been made about NFL quarterback interviews, combine interviews, and the S2 test, and there's so many things that go into it. But it's if somebody had the magic bullet for that, they would make a lot of money for sure. So we're always trying to figure that out. But it's certainly we try to just learn. We try to learn as much about these top prospects as possible. So it's kind of just like a gathering information. There's like the evaluation for us is just all pieces for a puzzle in a picture that kind of becomes clearer and clearer, as the cycle goes on. And by now, for instance, like for 2024, we feel like we have a pretty good feel for these guys.
We're joined by Charles Power, Director of Scouting for On3 Sports. And James Pierce is a guy that you guys had rated very high. Everyone else did not have him high. And right now, he seems to be one of the best pass rushers entering the 2024 season. What did you guys see in him that maybe some other people did not see in him coming out of high school?
Yeah, James Pierce was my favorite prospect from that whole cycle. And it was an interesting deal where, he did not go to camps. He was not at like all-star games. So for us, it was strictly a film evaluation. I just happened to watch a lot of his high school games, basically. Like he didn't put out highlights. And I watched one of his games like early in the year, and it was like jaw-dropping how good he was. It was kind of a deal where it was so good, I was like, I'm going to come back and watch him next week to make sure this wasn't a fluke. And it kind of kept building to where I basically watched all of James Pierce's high school games. He was dynamic. I think if he was a guy that we were able to see in person, he would have pushed. We could have had him even higher. But just going off of the film and watching the games, it was apparent. Like I was like, this guy's a no doubt 5-star. And I wish it had been a deal where we had got to see him in a national all-star game, because I think we're going to look back and probably think he was the best pass rusher in that cycle. So I'm really proud of where we had him ranked, but in hindsight, I kind of wish we had him higher because he was that good. I think I watched his state semifinal game, and that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from a pass rusher, like at the high school level. Like he completely took the game over. They were trailing. He had like a strip sack, forced fumble, kind of a walk-off touchdown to end the game, and people were running all over the field. It was just a insane performance. I'm really excited to see how he's played. It was nice to see him blow up, because it just kind of makes you feel good of like okay, like I wasn't like seeing things when I was watching his grainy senior high school football streams, but yeah, I mean he's a big time talent, and I think that's a position where I think I said this at the time when Tennessee flipped him late, like that was, or when they signed him late, they kind of got him to sign early. I think he was initially planning to wait until February, and I think if he had waited, his recruitment really would have kind of been on a more national scale. So that was a really smart play by Tennessee to kind of sneak him in there, in that early signing period. But I think that's a position where Tennessee's done a great job recruiting under Josh Heupel. Like I think when you look at how the offense plays, under like ideal circumstances, they want to get up to early leads, and that just allows you to get these speed rushers on the edge to pin their ears back with teams kind of that are your opponents playing in negative game scripts. So I think that's like the edge position is one that Tennessee has done really well at. James Pierce is probably the kind of the crown jewel of that group, but and I think that's a position that they've continued to recruit well, in the 2024 cycle. I think we're going to look back at Josh Heupel's first couple of years and think that that's like a kind of a strength of his staff.
Yeah, that's good stuff there. Charles Power on 3 with us. Jordan Ross, how would you factor him into that conversation? He's a part of the incoming 24 class for Tennessee. And what else would stand out in that group, the newcomers joining this upcoming year's team?
Yeah, Jordan Ross is the guy. Like I think that you have to start off with. I mean, we saw a bunch of these top pass rushers, over the past several weeks at these national all-star games, and Jordan Ross was certainly a stock up type. He was fantastic at Under Armour. I think probably, I don't know, several 5-stars there. He looked, as good as anybody in that group. And he had a outstanding showing at the Poly Bowl this past weekend. I think from watching that game, he was the best player in the field. Just outstanding play speed, backside pursuit, really high effort level as well. Sometimes you see guys in these all-star games going half speed. Like they're out there in Hawaii. I mean, for some of those guys, it's probably a glorified vacation. And he was just tracking down ball carriers, had several hits on the quarterbacks. I think he put Dylan Raiola on the ground 3 or 4 times, had a sack. in several plays behind the line of scrimmage. So he's looked fantastic. He's a guy who I think has continued to play better and better. Had a very good senior year, productive, has put on good size. And man, I'll tell you what, he is killing it in basketball this year. Like some of his, dunks and all, like his dunk reel is going to be very impressive. Kind of whenever, I guess, whenever that comes out, wherever he's going to put out basketball eyes. I don't know if he will, yeah, he's a big time athlete, twitchy guy. And I think, you know, bringing him in behind a guy like James Pierce, and kind of what else they've done at that position, I think is like he is certainly capable of filling those shoes. Another guy in the class in 24, Kellen Lindstrom out of Missouri had a very good senior year. Production shot up a ton. He's kind of an active pass rusher, but I think this is the area that they've done a really really good job at. I remember Joshua Josephs in James Pierce's class. I think he was one of the longest pass rushers. I think he has like a 7 foot plus wingspan for like a guy who's like 6'3" and change. So I think when you look at Tennessee, they definitely go after the high end traits at the position, like the length, speed, twitch. I don't think it's out of the question they're going to have a bunch of pass rushers that are high draft picks in the next couple of years.
Charles, this has been great. One guy I wanted to ask you about, we're up against it, but 30 seconds or so. Lance Hurd transferring from LSU. You guys, I think, were higher on him than every other service a year ago. What is Tennessee getting in Lance Hurd from the 23 class?
Yeah, huge body, very extremely physical. He plays mean, works to finish blocks. I think he was a guy who was probably going to start for LSU this year. Could have maybe started this year this past year as well. I think he's a big body, physical, can play right tackle or left tackle. Has played both. Began his career as a defensive lineman and kind of blew up, as a junior, senior, kind of later in his career. But a lot of traits, and he's a people mover for sure.
Yeah, important get for Tennessee. They need help at tackle, so Lance Hurd going to try to provide that immediately. He is the director of scouting and rankings for On3. Busy time right now, on3.com, to read the work that he and his team have there for you in the world of college football and recruiting. Charles, thanks so much for doing this. We appreciate you taking time to join us today.
Thanks, Charles.
Of course, guys, anytime. Thanks.
Charles Power On3 with us here on Josh and Swain. We'll continue the conversation. We're with you until 3 o'clock today on 99.1 The Sports Animal and AM 640 The Sports Monster. Back on Josh and Swain, and we will have to be quick to move on to hour number 2, but I think last segment was worth it. A lot of good info from Charles Power talking about new quarterback commit George McIntyre for Tennessee, Nico, who's QB1 right now, as well as James Pierce and guys that can help Tennessee into the future. So we will reflect on that conversation. We'll see what you think about the news today. 2025 quarterback George McIntyre from Brentwood Academy announcing his commitment to the Vols for next year's class, the impact that could have on the class as well. We'll cover all of that, plus Tennessee's win against Alabama in basketball. It's been a pretty good run for Tennessee over the last few days. We'll continue to discuss it and invite you to join us. 865-656-9900. We'll open up the text box coming up with 2 hours to go right here on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. Hour number 2 begins. Hope you're having a great start to the week. Swain, I'd say a George McIntyre commitment, a Tennessee 20-point victory over Alabama. Lance Hurd official announcement. Jackson Moy transferring on the defensive line to provide depth there. And you have some eligibility remaining over the next couple of years for these players that we're talking about coming in. It's been a pretty good run for Tennessee. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Feeling good. It's been a heck of a year for Tennessee athletics. Men's basketball, they are chasing a championship, showing and proving why they are one of the best teams in the country. I think the SEC race is going to be so fun this season. Kentucky handling business, Auburn blowing out another opponent, Kentucky doing the same thing. Alabama was one of those 4 teams in the conversation, but what Tennessee did to them over the weekend, I think now it's probably about the big 3 unless Alabama turns things around and are able to beat Kentucky and Auburn. But I just think Tennessee, Auburn, and Kentucky are the 3 best teams in the SEC right now. You look at Tennessee addressing needs on the offensive line, defensive line. And then you look at Tennessee securing their quarterback of the future, someone that's right here inside the state of Tennessee. And I remember when George McIntyre kind of first hit the radar and we started to talk about him. His family comes from football. His uncle, head coach, who won a lot of games, and how much did George grow up as a huge Tennessee fan and willing to actually leave the state. I felt like he picked the best school that made the most sense for him, regardless of where he lived or who he liked as a younger player. It just made sense for him. It was really undeniable. You look at the quarterback position, being from Tennessee and being at Tennessee, I mean, it's like being the governor, if not more noteworthy and more important. And then you look at the offense that Heupel has, and he's a head coach, and when he's done with the quarterbacks during his career, I mean, Jordan Love is playing on a huge stage in NFL playoffs. And that's someone that Josh Heupel recruited to Utah State. And then you look at what Nico is doing. So if you're George and you're seeing all these clues, you can't turn down Tennessee to play quarterback here. So it just made sense for him. And now if you're Tennessee, you're George, man, you try to go out there and build this 25 class the best way you can. So that way you can be one of those top 5 teams in the country. Like Charles Power said, you have to do if you want to compete and have a chance to win a championship.
And, of course, guys can move around. We know about how the transfer situation works. But if you look at the projected quarterback room over the next 2 to 3 years of Nico Merklinger as a well-thought-of quarterback who's on campus, and then George McIntyre set to arrive in 2025, you create competition there among talented players. Nico's already in position as the quarterback starter, but after Nico, let's say everything goes as planned and he's here for 2 more seasons. So for 2023 and 2024, Tennessee has to feel really good about where it can be, 24 and 25, where things can be heading into 2026 because of what they've done in recruiting. And if Tennessee has the success that it hopes, it also becomes a more attractive place to other recruits, to other transfers, somebody like Lance Hurd who just chose Tennessee officially over the weekend. So Tennessee has put itself in a position to really build on the success it had in 2022 and then what it can develop out from Hendon Hooker to Nico to who they hope can be next after him, Merklinger or George McIntyre.
It's just important to do right by the players that you have because we do live in an age now where players can up and leave where you want to, whenever they want to. And the moment this rule was put in place to allow players to transfer, at that moment I said, man, this is really going to separate the coaches that value culture, that know how to talk to a young man without demeaning them, that really understands relationships and how to connect. Because the moment you start degrading and demeaning a player, and for so long, that was the coaching staff coaching style, of so many coaches, and they were able to coach that way, even though a player may not have been able to respond in the best way possible. You either deal with it or you leave. But now it's forced coaches to adjust their style, or it's forced them to retire. And I say all that to say there's a lot of noise about just kicking Joe Milton to the curb during the season. And I felt like it was really important that Josh Heupel managed him the best way possible and gave him every opportunity to be successful. I think he's improved during his time at Tennessee. When you look at him in Michigan and him at Tennessee, I thought he was a better quarterback. But let's say any of these freshman quarterbacks that you bring in, let's say they get hurt, let's say they're not successful, I think what Heupel has created for the quarterback position will attract maybe the next Dylan Gabriel, will attract the next Michael Penix, because you look at the success that Heupel has had with transfer quarterbacks, and now he has the opportunity to kind of show what he can do with quarterbacks that he's brought in from high school, with Nico taking over. He's already 2-0 with transfer quarterbacks. Now it's about showing what he can do with high school quarterbacks, and I'm pretty sure he's going to do a good job there too, because that's what he's done his whole entire career.
Yep, he's off to a good start with what we saw from Nico in his first start for Tennessee against Iowa a few weeks ago. Swain, how big was your smile Saturday after Tennessee rolled the Tide back to Tuscaloosa? That's a question in the text box.
I love it, man. I love it. 20-point dub, a little trolling at the end. I love
Dixieland Delight.
I love that. I love Nate Oates admitting that if the game was closer, Dalton Connect would have had 30-something points, and how Tennessee just handled them. I love it.
Naismith Trophy National Player of the Week, Dalton Connect. He received that honor just a little bit ago.
Bama's had a rough 10 days, Josh. It's been rough.
I need to pull up the Message Board Genius Twitter account. I'll bet they have another gem or two from the Alabama boards. It can't be going great right now.
Because you know how it is, man, as a college sports fan. And, hey, you're a football fan, and the season didn't go the way that you wanted to go. Okay, let's use Kentucky, for example. This is a great example. Normally, around November, Kentucky football fans stop caring and they get ready for basketball, right? In the past, it's been earlier, but Stoops has been successful in the last decade or so. So they've pushed back their basketball to November, all right? Well, we've been able to do some of that too in the last decade. Football's not doing so well. Rick Barnes and the basketball team, they've gotten our attention. Bama fans, I'm sure, tried to do that in the last 10 days with Nick Saban retiring, with all their good players leaving, and they tried to put all their focus in basketball. And the moment they did that, the basketball team went on the road and got beat by 20 points. And it was at 30 at one point during the game. So it's just been a rough week, man, for Bama fans.
So get your shots in. That's what the sport's about. If you're a Tennessee fan, if you're an Auburn fan, an LSU fan, Matt Moscona didn't hold back last week when he hopped on the show.
Last week, he's still going.
He's still going, yeah.
He's still going. I checked his Twitter yesterday. He's still going.
Yeah, the football offseason has a few more months to go. He won't be stopping anytime soon. And they actually, they had an okay weekend. They got a couple of guys that are coming in. Bama's going to be fine. But the Bama fans are reeling right now, and Tennessee fans know it. So you often, as a good person, you don't want to kick somebody while they're down. But as a college football fan to your rivals, you probably take the opposite approach. So when you see the opportunity to pile on, you start tossing whatever you can on.
It's the best time to kick them is when they're down. In college football, in college athletics, fan on fan, that's the best time. Because you can't kick them while they're up. You can't say anything. You have nothing to say. There's no bragging that you can actually do. But the moment they lose, the moment they hit probation, the moment something bad happens, that is your time to kick. Do the cha-cha slide. Do the electric slide. All the dances. Kick away.
Well, that's not very sportsmanlike, Swain.
I know. I know. I know. We not playing, Josh. Like if you play
No, you're not.
and the game is over, you shake hands at the end of the game, all that stuff. But fans,
Yep.
we got a different code over here. You trash talk, you kick while the other team is down. That's what you do.
George McIntyre's runner-up, Alabama.
What's great about this is Alabama was going to be the runner-up regardless of Nick Saban being there or not.
Right. Yeah, he was choosing Tennessee either way. Saban just happened to retire. So it's not like the Vols were helped. Would you have rather landed him against Nick Saban? I guess that is a worthless question.
It don't really matter. Tennessee was
you
able
toss everything aside as well.
Well, I think Tennessee had the lead for a while, and I think people knew that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that you get a player over Alabama, especially a quarterback. But now it's about trying to get players over Georgia, get players over Texas, get players over Ohio State, because Ohio State is recruiting like Alabama has been recruiting. Like we're wondering who's going to take that void. Ohio State said, "That's us. We're taking it."
Yeah, they had a weekend. They kind of did that in a literal fashion because they've taken 3 players from Bama. They took McLaughlin at center a couple weeks ago, and then they took Swain, the highly touted quarterback who had just signed and was about to start the spring semester at Bama, and said he's going to go to Ohio State. And then they pulled off the shocker with Caleb Downs. The expectation, or the heavy favorite it seemed, would be Georgia, and he announced for Ohio State over the weekend. And there's been some talk of NIL. Lane Kiffin sharing a story over the weekend on how much they might be spending on NIL this offseason at Ohio State. Ryan Day already told us how much he believes it costs to maintain a roster, and that was a couple of years ago. So cost of business
13.
might be going up, but big weekend for Ohio State. They had a good one.
Yeah, 13 mil was what Ryan Day said he needed not too long ago. And reports out there's things floating about how they probably spent close to that number. I mean, hard to believe they didn't spend close to that number when you talk about getting multiple quarterbacks, Judkins, and we kind of caught wind of what his price tag was, and then they were able to go get Caleb Downs, who was one of those high-priced players outside the quarterback position. Yeah, they spending some money up there, and this is a chance for them. Think about it. Harbaugh's about to leave. Harbaugh's been your daddy for the last 2 or 3 years. Oh, it's time to make a move if you are Ryan Day.
Yeah, word is Downs is getting Swain money. I don't know if you want to confirm, deny, but that's some of the word out there.
If I was making Downs money, I wouldn't be sitting here with you.
Not going to take that personal. We'll continue and invite you to be a part of the show. 865-656-9900 to join us. We'll continue to discuss the potential impact of George McIntyre committing to Tennessee's 2025 class today, the Vols' big win against Alabama this past weekend, plus the other additions for Tennessee's football team for this upcoming year. Text box is open. You can hit us up there, 865-656-9900. Chat with us or amongst yourselves on YouTube. If you watch there online, stop by the 99.1 Sports Animal YouTube page as we continue on Josh and Swain. on Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us. We're on social media at Josh and Swain. Follow us there on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, on a sunny, literally, Monday in East Tennessee, which is welcome. Temperatures rising a little bit, Swain, plus sunshine coming down on Big Orange Country, no matter where you are.
Appreciate
physically
you, Jordan
located
McIntyre.
here or around. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. I mean, we've been needing sun, and McIntyre picking Tennessee is what made the clouds go away and the sun come out.
See what we're looking at. 38 right now, Swain. Do you think 38 right now feels like 88? You step outside, it's 38 degrees. Like, woo, we're down in Florida right now.
Yeah, no, actually it does. It was like
38 and sunny. Yeah,
it was like 26 at one point. I want to say yesterday, and I went outside with like shorts and flip flops, and I was like, this ain't that bad compared to 6.
I think my wife and I both commented, this feels good out here.
Yeah, it's not that bad compared to 4 and 6 and 7. So,
yeah, 2 months ago it hits 55, and I said, I didn't know we were all of a sudden at the North Pole. So perspective always matters no matter the subject. But right now, I think the outside perspective is, hey, Tennessee's in a pretty good position. You brought up with Charles Power last hour when he joined us, if you look at recruiting rankings with Tennessee or some of their top competition in the SEC, you can be 6th, 7th, 9th, whatever. And man, but the race is so challenging. But Tennessee has put itself in a really good position. If Lance Hurd had been a part of the 23 class with Nico, that would have changed the perspective of what that class could be. Hey, we got a 5-star quarterback and a 5-star left tackle. It's just that he arrives a year later.
Yeah, the portal allows you, though, to kind of make up where you kind of missed. You kind of struck out. If you missed out on a prospect, no matter, like, if you get him and he's not good, or you try to get someone that you knew would be good and they went somewhere else, but you were still able to get them the next year, like the transfer portal allows you to kind of make up for a mistake with a get that you didn't make that you needed to make. And I think you look at Lance Hurd, you went out and you got Nico, you brought him in, and bringing him in, you got to provide him with protection. And Tennessee was able to go out there and do that. Now with Gerald Mincey leaving and even past Gerald Mincey for the next 3 years, because there's questions about the present and there's questions about the future when Nico's entering his second year as a starter as a redshirt sophomore in 2025. So, yeah, I mean, the portal was executed or used perfectly by Tennessee in this case with Lance Hurd.
We were asked, okay, Hurd, so he's coming, right? Yes, word came out Friday. As we discussed, don't be surprised if the directory shows his name before he puts anything out. But yesterday afternoon, Lance Hurd posted on his social media account for the first time in forever, committed to Tennessee, class to start this week. So he's good to go with the Vols, as we expected, but you feel better when you see the player say it versus what everybody else is saying. We were asked, though, okay, what about that guard spot? That has been a position that we've talked about being a question mark. Center is Cooper Mays. Right guard is Javonte Spraggins. We're taking a bit of an assumption, but Hurd at left tackle, and then you have John Campbell Jr. right tackle, or you could flip those two guys. Left guard is the question that still remains in what Tennessee's starting lineup would look like next year.
Yeah, and then I think also, too, you have to think about a backup to Cooper. Because if you can play left guard, you can play right guard. If you can play left tackle, you can play, right tackle. You got Dane Davis coming back, and no one's sitting here thinking that Dane Davis is going to be a starter, but like we know injuries happen, and so you have some options if guys get hurt at the guard and tackle position. But we saw the beginning of this past season the bind that Tennessee was in when Cooper Mays was out. You had to rotate guys, you had to move guys' position, and Ollie Lane was snapping in the Virginia game for the first time in his football career. Like, he never snapped a football. High school, at any moment in college, he gets an opportunity to snap for the first time. And that's just tough, man. That's just a tough ask. But I think if you're Tennessee, you definitely want to look at someone that can fill the guard position. And maybe that person who can fill the guard position is someone who can also play center too. That's why I was really intrigued with the player that went to Ohio State, the transfer from Alabama. What's his name?
Seth McLaughlin.
McLaughlin. Yeah, he's someone that can play guard right now, but can play center if you need him to play center. Like, I think Tennessee needs to get that type of player from the portal if you can.
We were asked about the guard position. That's still there. The defensive backfield coming up in conversation. That's an area where they've addressed in the transfer portal with guys that can come in and either start or provide depth. And then Ricky Gibson is probably the first name that we're going to be talking about among the young defensive backs that will likely start or at least will lead in the competition starting in the spring.
Yeah, what's weird about the portal too, man? Like, you get a commitment from a player, you are addressing a need, but then later a player hits the portal that could also address that need, and they might be better than the player you just got. It's kind of like saying yes to someone for the prom a month before the prom or 2 months before the prom, and then like person comes along and asks you, and they're like a whole lot cuter, better personality. You would have more fun with that person, but you already have a date. Like, you already say yeah, so you're stuck. That's what it feels like a little bit.
I do think it's easier to make room at a certain position group on your football team than it is to make room with your prom date.
Yeah, but if you've already taken 3 or 4 dudes in the portal and defensive back, you don't have any other room for that position. No,
is there any side tampering that happens? Like, you reach out to another school and it's like, hey, if you want to go ahead and check in with one of our guys, we're looking to create some room. Are there some side tampering deals that might happen in college football?
Well, I mean, listen, if I was out here tampering, allegedly, then everybody's tampering.
Yeah. Yeah, that was something with Caden Proctor, what he said. And
boy, that was something.
The detail that he provided, I don't know if that constitutes, but I'm not a dummy. I know that if I was reaching out saying, keep your head up, they're mentioning more than that when they're having discussions than just keep your head up. Pulling for you.
Who is they?
Yeah, that's another good question. Yeah.
They reached out. Who is they, and why would they? Like, before the portal transfer era and NIL era, what team that came in second is going to reach out to you mid-season when you're struggling to offer some advice or some words of encouragement? Who's doing that? Like, Michigan didn't hit me up during the season and go, hey, man, I see you haven't scored a touchdown yet, or I see that you didn't play that Fresno State game like you thought you were in the first, second, and third quarter. Man, just keep your head up. Just keep working hard.
Keep your head up, one.
Yeah, keep your head up, man. We still believe in you.
Yeah.
No, they didn't do that. Whatever, man.
I wish he had said, this is it's a great place, great school. I know that they really care about you. Even the collective was having people say, keep your head up to me. That's what I wanted to hear.
Man, he told on himself with that one. But nothing's going to happen, though.
I wouldn't think so.
Nothing's going to happen.
I wouldn't think so. I mean, Florida State got its. I don't know what's going to happen, so I wouldn't think so. But I never know. When I see Florida State get punished for stuff that we know is happening at other places, but I guess part of it comes back to, are you buttoned up in what you're doing? So they reached out.
To be buttoned up, buddy.
Stay buttoned up. Chip noting maybe 38 feels like 98 in Big Orange Country. I got to steal that joke. That's good, Chip. That's very good. We'll come back. 865-656-9900. Text box is open. We're live today on 99.1 The Sports Animal. Also in the Tri-Cities every day from 12 until 3 on AM 640, The Sports Monster. And anywhere you like to stream, you can find us on your favorite platform. That includes YouTube. Watch us there on the Sports Animal YouTube page for another 90 minutes as we continue on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. Halfway home, 90 minutes to go, a little less than that. Until Tyler and Will take over at 3 o'clock on the Sports Animal. We're on in the Tri-Cities on AM 640, the Sports Monster as well, with the George McIntyre news of the day, plus Tennessee adding important pieces through the transfer portal over the weekend. Jackson Moy, a defensive lineman from Stanford, visited Tennessee and announced he will transfer to play for the Vols. On Sunday, Lance Hurd announced his transfer, which we essentially knew was coming. He made that news official with his announcement on Sunday. That was a day after Tennessee picked up a 91-71 win over Alabama, and a bunch of players continue to contribute. Swain, 25 points for Dalton Connect. Jonas Adu has another big game, and then players throughout, off the bench, when they get that kind of production from Jordan Gainey and Jemai Mashak, all that he is able to do. I think fans are recognizing even more the value of Mashak and what he brings to Tennessee's basketball team. He is a very important player for Tennessee. They all have important roles, and Connect gets the most attention. He is the Naismith Player of the Week nationally. He's a Player of the Year candidate. He's a first-team All-American candidate. But Tennessee is deep in the players who play important roles for Tennessee. They have a starting five, but to me, it's really like they have a starting six with Jemai and the amount of minutes he typically plays.
Oh, heck yeah, man. Had 4 players in double figures. I guess the only thing you can kind of knock Tennessee on from the Alabama game, and if you're Rick Barnes or anybody on the coaching staff, you're always trying to focus on what you can do better while also highlighting what the players did a good job of, too. I look at the free throw line. I mean, when's the last time you seen Vescovy shoot 50% in a basketball game, from the free throw line? Also, Mashak was 33% from the free throw line. He was 1 for 3. So as a team, Tennessee is one of the best free throw shooting teams in the country in the SEC. But on Saturday, they shot 68%. And so we look at the last time this Tennessee team had a team that was fun to watch, that had a real threat of winning a national championship. That was the Grant and Admiral 2018 team. And what got us in trouble that year? That was free throws, late in the season. So that'll be the one thing I would nitpick on. Rebounding, obviously, you always want more of those, but it was good to see Gainey break out of his funk, shooting the basketball. I mean, he was 3 for 5 from 3, perfect from the free throw line, got you 15 points. I didn't think that Jordan Gainey would be the 3rd leading scorer for Tennessee in the game against Alabama, but kudos to him, man, for staying in that gym and believing in yourself and just continue to take shots, because you have to take them to make them. And when you're not making them, it makes you not want to take them. And so you get that positive energy from your teammates to tell you, keep shooting. But you're saying to yourself, they're not going in. I'm going to pass it. I'm going to go give it to somebody else. No, keep shooting. Eventually, it's going to go in, and that's what happened for Gainey on Saturday.
So Tennessee has Vanderbilt coming up Saturday, and then the Vols will host South Carolina. The game's in Nashville on Saturday. Then Tennessee will host South Carolina a week from Saturday, February 3rd. Tennessee will go to Kentucky. Right now, it kind of shapes up as Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn. Bama's not out of it. It's way too early to say that. But the 3 best could end up being Tennessee, Kentucky, Auburn. Auburn looks really good. More challenges are coming. Kentucky got the freshman eligible this past weekend. Big Z. 7'2" guy that can do a lot, and that's going to factor in that they can score.
What's his name?
Kentucky.
His name is Big Z.
Big Z.
That's on his birth certificate.
I think that's what it says. Yeah.
His first name
Big. Last name Z.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Zvonimir Ivisic, I believe, is the correct pronunciation, or close to it. So,
Big Z works.
Zvonimir or Big Z, whichever you prefer.
Yeah, I prefer Big Z. Big Z works just fine. I'm good with Big Z. Yeah, that works. But yeah, they got Big Z eligible, man. So that's going to be another challenge for Tennessee's big men. And I think this time off a little bit, Tennessee basketball team had the day off yesterday, and they don't play for a couple days. But as you are preparing to play 2 teams that, quite frankly, just not on the same level as you before you play Kentucky, I think these 2 games need to be very important for JP Estrella and K Phillips. Like,
Yeah.
you got to have multiple big men ready to go in and play because versus Kentucky, I don't think it's going to be Jonas and Waka being able to just hold down the fort by themselves.
Yep. I can't wait to talk to Slay tomorrow. Ron Slay will join us from 1 to 2, so we'll have fun on the Slay ride. Kentucky can score, but you can score in Kentucky. The score against Georgia on Saturday was 105 to 96. Before that, Kentucky scored 90. They lost 97 to 92. It was an overtime game against A&M. They scored 90, 87, 96, 95. So they give up points. Offensively, they rank 4th in the country, according to KenPom, but 73rd nationally. That's Kentucky.
Yeah, I like our chances against Kentucky. I wonder what KenPom says about Tennessee-Kentucky game. Like, anything can happen. I mean, that's 3 games from now. But when you look at Kentucky guarding and how they're able to put the ball in the basket, we just played a team that was really good at putting the ball in the basket. Now, that was at home. Tennessee will have to travel up to Rupp Arena. We know how things can go up there, but still, like, I like the fact that we play the defense that we play. I think it travels. And the last time we went up there, like, Kentucky had like a once-in-a-lifetime performance shooting the basketball. I don't see that happening again.
Would you be surprised to find out I happen to have Mr. Palm's projection, Ken Palm's projection for Tennessee and Kentucky? He has the Vols winning at Rupp by a slight margin. 83-82 gives Tennessee a 55% chance of winning at Kentucky. And then the second game, it's the finale. What a Saturday that's set up to be. Saturday, March 9th, Tennessee at home against Kentucky to close out the regular season. He gives the Vols better than a 3 out of 4 chance, 76% chance to win that game. The only game that he gives the opponent individually a slight edge, and fans will laugh based on how Saturday went, but Tennessee does go to Alabama Saturday, March 2nd, and he projects Alabama by a point going into that game.
Let's go.
So Ken Palm's current record projection for Tennessee and SEC play, 14-4. If that happens, that would give Tennessee a really good chance of winning the league.
It's going to be tough to win the league. I mean, Auburn's really, really, really good. They're deep. Got a bunch of good players. They don't have a Dalton Connect, but a lot of really good players. They don't have a Jabari Smith Jr., but just a bunch.
Tennessee has an advantage there. They only play once, and the game between Tennessee and Auburn will be in Knoxville. That's February 28th.
Yeah, we remember the last time Jabari Smith Jr. came up here, and they were, I want to say, number 1, number 2, or, I mean, they were flirting with number 1 and all year long, but that defense, that crowd, that intensity got the best of Auburn that day, and I don't think that's going to be anything different once Auburn comes up here to Knoxville later in the season.
It's a feel-good Monday, Swain.
Feel-good
Monday for Tennessee fans.
Feeling great. But this is what it's like to be on that roller coaster. As a football fan, as a basketball fan, the wins just feel so great, and sometimes those losses make you want to shed tears. Just ask the Buffalo Bills fan that was caught in the stands after that game. That was terrible.
Somebody needs to be checking on that fan today. Not only him, but that one especially. Whew.
Yeah, that was rough, man. That was rough.
Well, yeah. Also, for different reasons, check on Jason Kelsey. My guess is he's actually doing just fine. That just looked like a typical evening, but he was having a time at the Chiefs' win over the Bills last night. We'll continue to talk about what happened this past weekend. A few more thoughts on a busy NFL weekend as Conference Championship Week is here. We'll talk more Tennessee, of course, as we move forward, and invite you to join us, 865-656-9900, to be a part of the show as we continue on Josh and Swain. Back on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us. 865-656-9900 to join us. Final few minutes of hour number 2 with you until 3 o'clock today. You can always search Josh and Swain anywhere you get your podcast. If you want to go back and listen, search our name, whatever podcast platform you prefer. That includes the WNML app. You can always listen to us on demand thanks to Beatty Chevrolet. And we ended last segment mentioning, Swain, the poor Buffalo Bills. They continue to find ways to come up short. It's wide right again. Fans who have been a part of that history, I'm sure, either couldn't believe it or said, of course, depending on the perspective you bring there. But Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they're back in the AFC title game again. VFL Trey Smith, who got a Super Bowl ring last year, a part of that. So back in the AFC championship game. I think this upcoming week will be tougher. They go to Baltimore. Ravens have been really good. Got an easy win on Saturday. And then Lions, 49ers, never in doubt for the 49ers on Saturday night on the NFC side.
Like, if you're the Buffalo Bills, you feel like you shouldn't have left the game in the hands of a kicker to have to kick a 44-yard field goal in those conditions. Josh Allen had plenty of opportunities to get closer. Stephon Diggs had opportunities, those guys to connect. And the thing that stinks is, like, Kansas City has struggled all season long offensively. And at one point during the game, one of the announcers said that this was their best game of the season. Like, the receivers were catching balls. They were making plays. Mahomes was able to connect with Kelsey on 2 touchdowns. I mean, this was your chance if you're Buffalo. Like, this was your chance to finally get past the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Chiefs, again, proving why they are in a league of their own, from top to bottom, GM and head coach and quarterback, and they just find ways to win. And here they are, 6th year in a row, having the opportunity to, 6th year in a row being in the AFC Championship game. And now they have the opportunity to go to Super Bowl again. And after those guys losing so much firepower offensively, just didn't think they would have enough to get back when we watched them play mid-season. But here they are. Patrick Mahomes,
Yep.
Anything's possible.
And then last 30 seconds of the hour or so, but congrats to your Lions, your second team in the NFC title game. They continue to take care of business. We'll see if they can keep the magic running against the 49ers, who were fortunate to get the win against Green Bay.
Good job, 49ers. Tampa Bay, you let me down. You let me down, Tampa Bay.
But a few VFLs headed to the next round, including Cam Sutton, who plays an important role in the secondary. Hendon Hooker there as a backup, who's been available the last few weeks of the regular season. But we'll see. Winning at home against Tampa, winning on the road against 49ers, 2 different conversations. But they've got the shot this week. We come back for the final hour of Josh and Swain. This is Josh and Swain. Thank you for being with us as we begin hour number 3 of today's show. Hope you're having a great Monday so far. We do have a little warmer weather in Knoxville and East Tennessee, which I know a lot of you have been waiting on. No matter where you are listening to the show, we say hello to everybody up in the Tri-Cities on the Sports Monster, or however you might be streaming the show. We appreciate you hanging out, as there has been a lot to discuss and still will be over the next hour. We invite you to join us at 865-656-9900. That's how you can be a part of the show. It's the same number to call or text. The text box is open. We'll get back to messages coming up here in just a moment, with the news of the day being 2025 quarterback George McIntyre committing to the Vols. He chose Tennessee over Alabama and several other schools. He's at Brentwood Academy, one of the highest-rated quarterbacks in the upcoming 2025 class. That follows offensive tackle Lance Hurd announcing yesterday that he will transfer from LSU to Tennessee. Defensive lineman Jackson Moy announced the same, that he will transfer from Stanford to Tennessee. So the Vols get help along the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. And that followed Tennessee's win against Alabama, 91-71 on Saturday. So Tennessee against Alabama has come up positive on the orange side here recently, Swain. A good weekend for Tennessee in multiple sports, and Tennessee building for the future in football got a boost here over the last 24 to 48 hours.
Yeah, great weekend for Tennessee. Not so great for Alabama athletics. And they have gotten a couple players from Washington from the portal, which is what we all expected. But, man, just a really good get by Tennessee, addressing the quarterback position in 2025 class. One thing that stood out to me about what Charles Power said about George McIntyre is you can't really look at McIntyre his last season at Brentwood Academy and look at their team results and let that impact your view of George too much, because the offensive line wasn't as good as it needed to be for McIntyre, and that affected him. It affected his play. So I thought that was really, really, really noteworthy coming from Power on his evaluation of George McIntyre. And man, he's watching the film over and over and over and over again, something that he referenced when talking about James Pierce. And they were the only site to list him as a 5-star. But the film kept screaming 5-star to Power. And he had to go back and watch the game again and look at the game over and over and over. And, man, he trusted his evaluation. And it's one of the most proud evaluations that he had. And he feels like he should have went higher on his rating.
I love that part.
Maybe Pierce would have been the first ever 6-star because they already had him as a 5-star.
See, what'd they say about Pierce? Again, very high on him, and I think Charles might be too hard on himself considering he won that battle. When you look at James Pierce as a recruit, they had Pierce as the number 1 player in North Carolina, the number 2 edge in the country, and the number 11 overall player in the class. So I think they did okay. I think Charles is being too hard on himself.
Well, he could have put him in the top 10. He could have put him in the top 5.
Okay, maybe he's not being too hard on himself. Swain wants to see a little bit more in hindsight as well.
But both things can be true. He's maybe too hard on himself, and he could have had him higher. I mean, we're talking about probably the best pass rusher in the country coming back for the 24-25 season.
The number 1 edge in their ranking, by the way, was Mikael Williams at Georgia. So I understand that evaluation. They had him as the number 2 overall player. That's a class include Travis Hunter, who was ranked ahead, Luther Burden, who has been a standout player at Missouri. But Pierce doesn't really take a backseat to too many players from that class. And you look at his potential and how he projects next year as a potential NFL player. The other thing that stood out in that conversation with Charles talking about McIntyre and Jordan Ross is their value to multi-sport success. They looked at McIntyre and what he's done in basketball and said that can translate to the athleticism that will be needed playing quarterback in college and what you're asked to do at that position now, especially in Josh Heupel's offense. And he had similar thoughts with Jordan Ross, who is a talented edge in this year's class, and could end up being the best player in the class for Tennessee. We'll find out. But he's a highly touted edge rusher who Charles also noted is a very good basketball player. So it stood out to me that they value that, your ability to do different things, not only in your respective sport, football is what we're talking about here, but other sports too, like basketball.
Yeah, he mentioned that Jordan Ross was at times the best player at the bowl, the Poly Bowl. So
yeah, the Poly Bowl, and Mike Matthews, one of the MVPs, by the way.
Yeah, so Tennessee made a statement there at the Poly Bowl. Playing multiple sports, especially like basketball, man, you got to be quick twitch. Like you can't just stand there and be a robot. And I think for George McIntyre that he doesn't possess the same running abilities as a Hendon Hooker, but quick twitch, sudden movements, being able to get away from pass rushers or step up in the pocket while still keeping your eyes down the football field and making sure that you're able to throw the football with the accuracy, that could be attributed to basketball. If he's able to come in and do that, you got to play multiple sports, man. You just learn, so much playing different sports, and you use rebounding, for a tight end or wide receiver. How many times have we seen linemen be really good because of their time wrestling? So we've seen so many examples of guys playing football, but them being really good at other sports helped them in their primary sport.
All right, so what are we thinking right now? 16-0, 15-1. What's the projection?
For what?
August 31st through January 20th. The schedule between Tennessee's season opener and the date of the national championship game.
George McIntyre is not even playing. And Jordan Ross and Matthews are going to be true freshmen.
So 15-1?
Yeah, probably. yeah, 15-1.
The excitement, the buzz is there for sure. Lance Hurd is a guy that should make an immediate contribution. Jackson Moy adding depth to the defensive line room as well. We were asked this, and time will tell the answer. This would be a good question for Austin Price in a couple of days. But who else could Tennessee land now that McIntyre is in the fold? I don't know what the answer to that is, but Tennessee is going to recruit a bunch of highly touted players just like their competition will be. But having McIntyre committed now publicly, because my guess is he's already chatted up some recruits on Tennessee's behalf. He was at the Alabama game on Saturday, but having McIntyre, a highly touted quarterback in the class, historically has shown to help other schools. It's helped Tennessee in the past, and I'm sure it will benefit Tennessee in some way.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to do some work inside the state of Tennessee. It's good to have your quarterback committed and do that early so that way he could be a voice for you. Because McIntyre, his voice is going to be louder than any coach's voice on the recruiting trail. Him being able to go out and recruit his peers. And I think it's going to be important for him to go out there and attract some offensive linemen, attract some players, some explosive players on the outside as well, too. So this is important for Tennessee to be able to recruit that position, nail it down so that way maybe we see a little replay of the 2014 recruiting class where you had Jalen Hurd and Vic Wharton and Todd Kelly Jr., all guys in-state that was out recruiting on behalf of Tennessee, and it made a big difference. Hopefully George McIntyre can start that with this class.
Hey, also from the weekend, as Tennessee had some nice additions. We discussed earlier, Ohio State landed a few players. Earmuffs for some, I guess, as I say his name, but Lane Kiffin on Twitter sharing a link to gridironheroics.com, which was aggravating CFB focus. I'm not even totally sure what that is, saying that Ohio State spent $13 million and counting in NIL money to boost the roster, which, by the way, they very well could have. I wouldn't be surprised if the number's higher if you include players coming back, players coming in. I'm sure it's a ton of money, whatever the number is. But Lane sharing that on social media about another school.
Yeah, maybe he is trying to explain to people why he lost the running back, Judkins. I mean, maybe that's his way of saying, hey, there was no way I was going to pay him that amount of money. Our budget is not the same as Ohio State's. But I don't want to hear Lane complaining about any of that stuff
Sure.
because he chose to stay at Ole Miss where he could have went somewhere else that had a bigger pockets and deeper pockets at Ole Miss.
Vol fan for life in the YouTube chat noting McIntyre already tweeting to David Sanders and Cameron Sparks.
Let's go.
So yeah, he'll be active. He'll be active.
Let's go.
And last week we had the question, hey, should the expectation be go beat Alabama in recruiting? That hasn't happened in a while for Tennessee or most schools.
Heck yes, that's the expectation.
They've already beaten them head-to-head for George McIntyre. Now he's going to help Tennessee try to beat Alabama with the rest of the class.
Yeah. NIL-wise, Alabama a little bit behind because they didn't really have to use it or depend on it as much when Nick Saban was the head coach. Kalen DeBoer hasn't recruited in this area. Won't say that he won't eventually, but like if you're Tennessee or any other program in the SEC, besides a few schools, you should feel like you have the upper hand and be able to recruit this area well. So yeah, I mean, you should have the expectation of out recruiting Alabama, at least right now.
It's a decision, or it's not a decision, it's a calling, was McIntyre's message in the video he put out today. Not a decision, it's a calling.
Cool. It could be a decision. It could be a calling. It could be your purpose. Hey, man. Whatever.
It can be a coincidence. You don't care as long as he's signing up to play.
Exactly. It could be luck. It could be Tennessee was on place because all the other places was just that bad. I don't care. He's going to be wearing orange, man. That's all I care about.
Yeah, they have 85 scholarship guys, right? They got different reasons.
Cool. I don't care if it was academics. I don't care if it was a location. I don't care if it was NIL. I don't care if you have a good relationship with Josh Heupel. I don't care if you just like the color orange. I don't care. He's a Tennessee Volunteer.
George McIntyre, 2025 quarterback, projected to be a 5-star in next year's class, committing to Tennessee today. We have 45 minutes to go on today's show. 865-656-9900 to be a part of it as we continue on Josh and Swain. We'll talk more George McIntyre in our next segment. Hear what Charles Power of On3 said. He is the director of their scouting and rankings about Tennessee's new quarterback commit and the potential impact on Tennessee's football program. The building of that quarterback room by Josh Heupel. That's coming up a little more than 10 minutes from now. We'll continue to invite your interaction on the show. 865-656-9900 to be a part of the show. We were talking about recruiting and McIntyre's potential impact in getting others to join the Vols, Swain. Jerry in Collierville texted in, Swain, how much did you look at the class Tennessee had committed when you were being recruited? Was there another recruit that helped recruit you to Tennessee?
No, there was not another recruit that helped recruit me. I was the recruit that helped recruit everybody else. It seemed like, I felt like I was pretty instrumental in bringing in Aaron Sears, who didn't have Tennessee in his top 5 when I first met him. But I think me and Woody McCoy did a pretty good job of just talking Tennessee and getting Tennessee to get a visit from Aaron Sears, and the rest was history. I remember recruiting Steve Smith, the receiver that went to USC, and once they was a second-round pick of the Giants. I remember recruiting him when I was on my visit, fellow receiver. But
did he tell you he was coming?
He told me he was coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, he told me he was coming, and then he didn't. He went to USC, which I totally get. I understand, but I remember telling me he was coming. That had a chance to be a dynamic duo. I had met him at the U.S. Army All-American game, and so Andre Caldwell, who already was going to go to Florida because his brother Rashay Caldwell, he was trying to recruit me to Florida. I was trying to recruit dudes to Tennessee. So I didn't have a player recruit me to come to Tennessee. I was kind of the guy who made that decision based on how I felt, and I was trying to go out and recruit other players.
Jerry, appreciate that question in the text box. Communication is also so much easier now.
Oh, yeah.
Among recruits.
No, I mean, it really is. You can message folks. You don't have to call them on the phone like Turk McBride and try to, wait to see if a guy actually wants to talk to you or not, like Robert Meacham. You can just communicate social media. I mean, it's really easy to get in contact with other recruits, which I think is important for coaches to know. I mean, you telling one kid one thing, but you telling another kid who plays the same position another, they can catch you up in a lie real quick, real fast. And so before, you could tell a recruit, oh, no, you're going to be our number one receiver. Or no, we're not recruiting another receiver at your position. And then you don't find out until you actually sign and you walk in. Now, you can't mislead recruits because they have a really easy way to fact check what you are saying as a coach and just talk to each other. And you might lose both of them to another school. They might go together somewhere else if you ain't careful.
Yeah, that Jamal Lewis class of running backs, I think they found out a bit about each other in Knoxville.
It happens. Yeah.
On maybe move-in day or whatever day that would have been. Not in Knoxville on their official visits, in Knoxville after they had signed and were getting moved in. But that's a very different time. Only, 11 years ago? Is that right? I told Riley Ferguson about Josh Dobbs signing. Now, he knew Tennessee had recruited him. That's internet and text, but he didn't know Dobbs had signed yet with Tennessee. He said, he signed with Tennessee too?
So you snitching on yourself?
It was an awkward conversation. It was in the interview on signing day. He came on the show to talk about signing with Tennessee, so I asked him about the quarterback competition. He didn't know that Dobbs had signed. That was kind of an awkward spot.
I'm sure Butch appreciated you. You messed up his lie.
Yeah, well, probably not the only time.
What? There's another quarterback? Hey, if you don't think there's another quarterback coming in, or
it worked out for both guys. Dobbs at Tennessee and Ferguson. He ended up going to Memphis and did quite well there.
But like, if you're a quarterback and you don't expect competition, that's your fault.
Right.
That's like when Chris Leak was going to commit to Tennessee, and me and Chris Leak had had a conversation about playing together at Tennessee. This was pre-Georgia game 2002. Pre-Georgia game. Once that game happened, that ruined every chance for Chris Leak to come to Tennessee because family was not happy about what happened with CJ. And Dad wanted to be guaranteed that Tennessee wouldn't recruit another quarterback, and Coach Foreman just wasn't doing it. And that's kind of why he wanted to go to Florida. But Chris Leak and I were talking before I committed to Tennessee and before he committed anywhere about playing together at Tennessee. That happened.
Why couldn't you get it done?
That wasn't my fault. That wasn't my fault.
Okay,
man.
I've heard you're a good recruiter. I was just wondering.
I couldn't pull that one. No, that wasn't my fault. They were not happy with how CJ was handled. And
I recall.
If you're Tennessee,
it's an awkward time.
I understand. You can't force a quarterback to play if he's not ready to play.
Yeah, recruiting little brother quarterbacks that can be a challenge sometimes. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't.
Well, hopefully,
especially in the mid-2000s.
Well, Hypo's in position to make it happen with Madden. Yeah, Malio.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So
it didn't work out with Chris Sims. Matt ended up coming, so you never know. You never know how things are going to play out. Josh and Swain here. Thanks for hanging out with us. Before we close out this segment, let's hand out today's Attaboy. Swain, we hand out Attaboys and Attagirls every day thanks to Native Design and Hardscape. NativeTN.com, the website. An Attagirl today to Stanford coach Tara Vanderveer. She has been one of the great coaches in the game of basketball for a long time. She also had the incredible stretch where Stanford won national titles in 90 and 92, and then again 3 years ago in 2021. So you had that incredible gap, but she's run a high-level program, and this past weekend won her 1,203rd game and passed Mike Krzyzewski to become the winningest coach in Division I history. Been one of the most respected coaches, has the titles, has all the glory that would come with being in that position and winning at the highest level. And then in individual wins, the number one mark, 1,203 wins and counting, of course, passing Coach K.
As a Tennessee fan, you see the coaches climb up all-time wins ladder, and you see Vandegrift being number one. And it's hard not to think about where Pat Summitt would be if she was still with us. Like, she would probably be number one. But I think when you look at how she's ran her program at Stanford, you feel better about her being number one rather than any other coach. How she has represented the game with a ton of class. She's a champion. She's won 3 times. There's so much respect for Tennessee and Pat Summitt. And so I think Tennessee fans can get behind Stanford basketball being kind of at the top when it comes to all-time wins. And so, kudos to her and her program, all the players that have played there, being part of history.
Yeah, I'm sure Pat Summitt would be proud of Tara Vanderveer and what she has accomplished. They've not had a losing season since her first. They've won 20 or more games in a season 38 times. So that number will continue to climb, and Gino's still in the mix. He is not far behind and still coaching as well. I'm confident Tennessee fans won't be pulling for him. So Tara Vanderveer, number one now, passing Coach K this past weekend. And
Griff?
We hand out what's that?
Did I say Vandegrift? Did I say her?
Yeah, Brock's on your mind with his transfer to Kentucky.
Yeah, my
Vanderveer,
bad.
Tara Vanderveer. That's right.
My bad. Golly.
Yep. Our Attagirl to Tara Vanderveer today, and every day we hand out Attaboys and Attagirls thanks to Native Design and Hardscape, Knoxville's premier landscaping and hardscape designer. Schedule a consultation today. You can call Native Design at 865-310-3256. You can see some of the work that they've done. NativeTN.com. They can help you at your home. They can help you at your business. So get in touch today with Native Design and Hardscape. What can the George McIntyre impact on Tennessee be, both with his potential as a player and what it says about Tennessee's building at that important position, quarterback? Charles Power of On3 on that when we come back on Josh and Swain. Thanks for being with us this afternoon. We are with you for a little more than 20 minutes. Tyler and Will taking over at 3 o'clock on the Sports Animal. We continue on AM 640, the Sports Monster as well in the Tri-Cities. Jason Swain here, VFL, former Tennessee wide receiver. I'm Josh Ward, and we led the show with the news of George McIntyre committing to Tennessee earlier this morning. He is a talented, highly touted 2025 prospect from Brentwood Academy. So for Tennessee, they have Nico. They just signed Jake Merklinger in the 24 class, and now have George McIntyre projected as a 5-star player in the upcoming class, committed to join a year from now. So earlier in the show, we talked to Charles Power, the director of scouting and ranking for On3 Sports, and he told us what he thinks about George McIntyre, as well as what the impact can be in landing somebody like George McIntyre. Here's Charles Power.
Yeah, I think George McIntyre has a lot of just translatable skills at quarterback. I think this is a guy who, when you look at his athleticism, his ability to win from the pocket, outside of structure, his natural mechanics, just overall coordination, it just bodes really well when you're projecting for the position. He's a guy who I've seen in person twice. I've been to 2 of his games the last 2 years. I think he just has a lot of just playmaking ability and natural skills that we tend to like. You know, he's over 6'5". I think for a taller quarterback, has a really tight release, accurate, can throw it at all levels of the field. You know, we all know his background as a basketball player, and I think that athleticism and just spatial awareness transfers really well to playing quarterback. And you know, I think George had a good junior year. A lot was made about Brentwood Academy season. They played a tough schedule. They had trouble blocking up front, but he really carried his team, and they were in tight games because of him. I think he put up pretty good raw stats, and kind of he was just dragging the team essentially. So, you know, I think that experience.
Charles Power talking about George McIntyre earlier in the show. He actually said, you know, some of the challenges that he's experienced will help him in the future. Raved about his athleticism and what he's done as a basketball player, and what he can become. As if you look at George McIntyre, you will see he needs to get stronger, needs to add weight. I don't recall too many high school quarterbacks, Swain, that we didn't say that about. We've talked about it with Nico, and that's still a conversation. It will be, I'm sure, when McIntyre arrives on campus. But his upside is there. He can have an impact on the class, as we've talked about here over the last hour on the show. And it also adds credibility to what Josh Heupel has done at the position. Before he got to Tennessee, he already had a pretty good track record. And then what happened with Hendon Hooker, what a lot of people believe is about to happen with Nico as well, is adding to the attraction of Tennessee if you're a quarterback. And it helps the McIntyre's in-state, and he has the natural draw to Tennessee. If you watch the video, you will see that Tennessee means a lot to him. But he also talked today, McIntyre did there in Nashville when he was doing interviews, about Josh Heupel and his history with quarterbacks, and this being his offense. That was also a part of the draw for him to choose Tennessee today over Alabama, LSU, Clemson, pretty much any big-time program in the country.
Yeah, I mean, you hear athletes talk about making business decisions, and I understand that's part of it, but it's cool to hear the player make a decision, and, you know, he leads with his heart. And, you know, your head can tell you one thing, but your heart sometimes louder. And everything just lined up, I thought, for George McIntyre. Playing an offense that's quarterback friendly, to play inside of a program where the coach staff wants you to be successful. The culture is positive. You're in state, so you have those opportunities post-playing career to really build something for yourself outside of football. Just so many opportunities, so many things that lined up, I thought, for George McIntyre, on top of being able to compete and win, and having someone that's going to help develop you to the next level too. So just so many boxes, I thought, checked out for George and why he picked Tennessee.
He's not even at Tennessee yet, George McIntyre, but I think he is very popular right now among Tennessee fans. A lot of fan favorites to choose from. Nico ranks very high. Zakai has ranked very high there. Dalton Connect is climbing the rankings with what he's done recently.
Well,
So
Dalton's number one right now,
yeah, right now probably
behind Nico.
Yeah, Nico is just it's pretty obvious to explain why.
Yeah.
Dalton's the talk of the town right now with what he's doing. But George McIntyre, he's grabbing a few shares in the conversation. Yeah, he has a year to go before he gets to campus.
Well, when he gets
and
here,
then of course Tony Vitello always has some kind of say in the conversation too.
Yeah. But when George McIntyre gets here, Nico's playing, and Nico is 8 out of 9, and he throws one incomplete pass, then George McIntyre will be the most popular guy on campus. You know how that works.
Yeah, just give it time. Yeah. Merklinger and McIntyre, they'll have something to say about it here over the next year.
Mm-hmm. That's how it works, man. But this is huge, man. Huge for Tennessee. Just, the staff and other staffs inside the SEC, man, there's a lot of pressure now. And it's not bad pressure. It's actually good pressure. More pressure, better pressure than it was a couple months ago when Nick Saban was actually coaching. But there's a race. There's a race to take up that real estate that Alabama occupied in the recruiting rankings. And so Tennessee has an opportunity, man, to reclaim that kind of a stranglehold that Alabama's had. And especially when you look at where Tennessee is, where there's 6 other, schools that can get to Memphis quicker than Knoxville. I know McIntyre's not in Memphis, but there's a lot of teams that have had success recruiting Tennessee. Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, LSU. Clemson is not the hot place to go right now. Alabama loses Nick Saban, so there's an opportunity for Tennessee to kind of reclaim their state. And we saw, Julia Colson go to Michigan. But still, this is good for Tennessee to be able to keep players inside of those walls.
Yep. Lance Hurd's coming. George McIntyre's coming. Everything's coming up Tennessee. It's been a good run for the Vols. We'll continue. Final segment of Josh and Swain coming up. We'll have the Power Poll looking back at the weekend. We'll get you to Tyler and Will coming up at 3 on 99.1 the Sports Animal. We continue on the Sports Monster as well in the Tri-Cities right here on Josh and Swain. Josh and Swain, thanks for hanging out with us today. We'll look forward to being back tomorrow at 12 o'clock. We'll have more to discuss, as right now it's a good time for Tennessee. We'll look ahead to the upcoming basketball week. Tennessee will go to Nashville, Ron Slay's town, on Saturday. We'll have the sleigh ride from 1 until 2 o'clock tomorrow. Don't miss that. VFL Tennessee basketball legend joins us each week, each Tuesday from 1 until 2 o'clock Eastern time. So we'll talk to Ron Slade tomorrow. We're working a little football with him as well. We'll have more NFL reaction. I felt for the Bills fans last night. Swain talking about that game a little bit earlier, watching their reaction. They were having a good time with Jason Kelce, but they still wanted Jason Kelce to walk out of there disappointed because he's now Team Chiefs with the Eagles being out of it, and it looks like Kelce's retiring. But he was bare-chested, chugging beers, celebrating his brother and the Chiefs, and high-fiving, having a good time with the Bills fans.
That's how you're supposed to have fun, man, in the game.
He's picking up little girls and having them turn around so he could wave to Taylor because he's in the same box as Taylor Swift. What if this actually works out? People have mocked this relationship. What if they get married? You never know.
I mean,
Travis and Taylor.
It's heading that way. But I mean, Jason Kelce didn't have a care in the world because his team is eliminated. Of course, he wants his brother to do well, but like his brother scored multiple touchdowns. He doesn't care if the Chiefs lose or if the Bills lose. He doesn't care. That's the perfect position to be in as a fan or as a spectator of a game in a playoff game.
We heard part of the soundbite last segment with Charles Power from earlier in the show. Encourage you to go back and listen to the conversation wherever you get your podcasts, or you can watch. We'll repost it as well on the Sports Animal YouTube page, where he talked about not only McIntyre, but Nico. On three had Nico as the number one player in the country. And I think he's standing by that after seeing him make his debut against Iowa. But also James Pierce Jr., really good stuff there. Jordan Ross, one of the 24 signees on the edge. He really credited Heupel and the staff for how they've recruited that position, guys on the edge on defense. And then also Lance Hurd. I believe the word he used was mean. It was something like that in talking about the way Lance Hurd plays, which is what Matt Moscona said last week when he was on the show from ESPN Baton Rouge. Hurd announcing yesterday he is indeed coming to Tennessee. So that's what you want to hear about an offensive lineman, especially when he has the size and physical tools that Lance Hurd will bring as a transfer from LSU.
Yeah, he's big, man. He's big. He's mean. You know, Moscona talked about when he went to practice at LSU, how he was able to view practice. Brian Kelly let those guys see, and what he saw was Lance Hurd mixing it up and playing to the echo of the whistle, and really being a bully out there. So I want to see that for Tennessee. Of course, you want to keep it in between the whistles and not let it get you in trouble in terms of getting a 15-yard penalty, but like bring that nastiness here to Knoxville, and looks like he's doing that. We mentioned him being enrolled as a student, but he made it official with his edit that he's committing to Tennessee.
Yep, nastiness wanted in a complimentary way on the offensive line. Lance Hurd, it looks like we'll bring it to Tennessee for 2024. Before we close out today's show, let's hit the power poll. So Swain, here on a Monday, we look back at the weekend. It was an action-packed weekend in sports. Tennessee fans had a pretty good weekend, I do believe. We have our top winners, top losers from the weekend. The Power Poll presented by Alcoa 10 Federal Credit Union. Would you like to lead us off with your list?
Yeah, winners, man. Just Tennessee recruiting. Multiple players in 2000 for the 24 season, and then you get George McIntyre for the 2025 season. The Lions, I mean, they're playing for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. I don't care if you are a Packers fan, Bear fans, or a Viking fan. You gotta tip your cap to what the Lions have been through as an organization, that city, what they've been through. It's been a year of Michigan for sure, man. The football team wins a national championship, and now the Lions have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl. And Tennessee hoops, got to put them on the winners list. I mean, you go out and beat Bama by 20. Losers include Bama basketball. Come in here and turn the basketball over, 22 times. That's not great at all.
Turnovers, yeah.
Only 19% from three. That's kind of what they do. They shoot the three very, very well. Unable to do that here at the Food City Center. And then, Buffalo Bills, man, they were leading going into the fourth quarter, 24-20, and they found a way to lose at home. Like, if you could draw up the scenario, you wouldn't. You have the lead at home going into the fourth quarter, and you found a way to lose. So, got to figure it out during the offseason if you're the Buffalo Bills.
And by the way, the cap price, and I know there are ways to work with some numbers, but they have a lot of work to do. Josh Allen's number skyrockets heading into next year. They're already over the cap. They have a lot of work to do on that roster to be able to stay in contention. They'll have a chance to do it when they have that kind of quarterback, but they have their work cut out for them as well. My winners from the weekend, Tennessee fans. You just have so much to brag about, so much to enjoy, so many individual players to be excited about. It's a good time right now for Tennessee fans. We gave her the Attagirl. I'll put her on the winners list as well. Tara Vanderveer, the all-time winningest coach in college basketball now. Number 3, Nick Dunlap, amateur. It's been a long time since an amateur has won a PGA Tour event. He did it this past weekend. I don't think he gets the money. So
nope, 1.5 mil. It can go to us. We'll take it.
There you go. Maybe it goes to a collective. The other 3 NFL teams, number 2, I have the Detroit Lions, number 1. Losers from the weekend, everybody leave Caitlin Clark alone after what happened yesterday. Number 2, Jordan Love. It's better to throw the pick on a Saturday night than a Sunday, but still not a good way for it to finish. Number 1, Josh Allen. It's not his fault, but he's the quarterback. All the attention comes back to him. That is the Power Poll to close out the show every day, presented by Alcoa 10 Federal Credit Union, your less red tape banking alternative. And that's going to close out Josh and Swain today. Thank you again for hanging out with us today. However you have been listening or watching the show, we appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow at noon. Joel Silverberg, great to have you back as well. Tyler and Will take over next. Thanks for listening to Josh and Swain.